Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of sources right here, all zeroing in on one fascinating bilateral relationship, India and Kazakhstan.
Hmm.
And honestly, diving into this material, something immediately struck me at the sheer, well, historical sweep of their connection.
Yeah.
Think about it, stretching back centuries long before modern nation states, connected by something as, fundamental as trade routes.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how that ancient thread isn't just some dusty historical footnote. It actually established the earliest points of contact between these peoples.
Right.
The sources highlight the ancient Silk Road, specifically mentioning its passage through regions in South Kazakhstan like Shymkent and Zambul.
Ah, okay.
This wasn't just about moving silk or spices. It was about the movement of ideas, cultures, and people. It laid a very, very early foundation for interaction across these, well, quite distant lands.
Absolutely. It's the bedrock, isn't it? So today we're taking a deep dive into how that connection evolved. The source material we have traces this relationship from those ancient paths right up to the intricate strategic partnerships they have today. It covers, well, pretty much everything: diplomacy, commerce, technology, even looking at future possibilities.
And our mission in this deep dive, based entirely on material you've provided, is to really pull out the crucial elements of this relationship.
Mhm.
We want to help you understand why it matters so much for both India and Kazakhstan and show you how these connections haven't just endured, but have, transformed pretty significantly over time. We're going to try and distill these pages into the core insights for you.
So you might be listening and asking, okay, why India and Kazakhstan? Why is this relationship important for me to understand?
Yeah, good question.
Well, it's actually a brilliant case study. It offers insights into the complexities of modern international relations, especially between, a rising global power like India and a resource-rich nation sitting in a strategically vital region. It shines a light on the relentless pursuit of energy security in the 21st century, which is huge, and it reveals the intricate dynamics playing out in Central Asia. It's a picture with many layers, and we're going to explore the key ones revealed right here in these sources. Let's jump in.
Okay, so to truly appreciate the modern relationship, the sources really compel us to first set the stage by understanding contemporary Kazakhstan.
Right.
Geographically, its position is, well, undeniably significant. It's bordered by giants like Russia, China,
Mm-hmm.
and it encompasses a substantial portion of the Caspian Sea coastline. That location alone gives it immense geopolitical weight.
And what's inside those borders is equally crucial, isn't it? The sources paint a picture of a nation that is not only highly industrialized, but also extraordinarily rich in resources.
Absolutely.
We're not just talking about empty steppes here. There are vast tracts of land exceptionally suitable for agriculture.
Yeah, the sources mention natural growth of essential crops like wheat and cotton, and even things like apples and walnuts. It's got a significant agricultural base alongside the industry.
However, the game changer, the element that arguably defines Kazakhstan's role on the global stage, and particularly its relationship with energy-hungry economies like India, has to be its mineral wealth, right?
Oh, unquestionably. The sources strongly emphasize its immense deposits of oil and gas. I mean, that's central.
Right.
But it's not just hydrocarbons. It also possesses substantial reserves of uranium, which we'll definitely come back to, plus gold and copper. This vast resource base is really the engine that drives so much of its economic policy and consequently its foreign relations.
And speaking of foreign relations, the source highlights Kazakhstan's approach using a specific term: a multi-vector foreign policy conducted with all countries. What does that specific term tell us? How does Kazakhstan navigate its place in the world, especially being surrounded by such powerful neighbors?
That phrase, multi-vector foreign policy, is really key to understanding Kazakhstan's strategic posture.
Okay.
It suggests a deliberate strategy to, well, diversify its international partnerships and maintain balanced relations with multiple global and regional powers. Think Russia, China, the United States, Europe, and, significantly for our discussion, countries like India.
So not putting all its eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a landlocked nation situated in such a complex geopolitical neighborhood and possessing resources that, frankly, many desire, this approach is about maximizing its strategic autonomy.
Makes sense.
It prevents over-reliance on any single partner, it mitigates risks associated with regional rivalries, and it allows Kazakhstan to pursue its national interests by engaging broadly across the international spectrum, So, well, a very complex balancing act.
Right, a pragmatic response to its geography and resources. And after the Cold War, the sources note that Kazakhstan adopted what's described as a technocratic model of governance.
Mm.
They specifically established clusters in different zones aimed at boosting resource-centric development. That sounds like a very deliberate, state-led approach to organize and leverage their natural wealth for economic growth.
Precisely. It's not just about having the resources. It's about building the state and economic structures to effectively extract, process, and manage them.
Right.
The technocratic model, as suggested by the sources, implies a focus on expertise and planned development. These clusters were likely designed to concentrate infrastructure, investment, and skilled labor around key resource industries to maximize efficiency and output. It's a focused strategy tied directly to their core economic strengths.
So, with that context, this resource-rich, strategically located nation adopting a multi-vector approach, India and Kazakhstan formally established diplomatic relations quite promptly, didn't they, back in 1992?
Yes, right after Kazakhstan's independence from the Soviet Union.
And the sources make it very clear that from India's perspective, Kazakhstan holds significant importance on two levels, both geopolitically and geostrategically.
And the driving force behind that significance, as highlighted repeatedly in the source material, is a direct link back to those resources we just talked about.
The oil, the gas, the minerals.
Exactly. Kazakhstan possesses precisely the minerals, the oil, and the gas that are absolutely vital to fuel India's massive and rapidly expanding economy.
Yeah.
As India's industrial and energy needs grow, securing reliable access to these raw materials and energy sources becomes a top strategic priority. This creates a powerful, mutual economic and strategic imperative for the relationship.
You can really see this recognized at the very highest levels of political leadership. A significant early strategic step pointed out in the sources was when the then president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, was invited to be the chief guest for India's Republic Day celebration in 2009. That's a really high-level diplomatic honor, isn't it? It signals the importance India placed on the relationship even back then.
It's definitely more than just an honor. It's a potent political signal. And India clearly capitalized on that opportunity.
How so?
The sources note that during that landmark visit, they concluded a strategic partnership agreement. This wasn't just a handshake. This agreement formally established the overarching framework and principles that would guide cooperation across a wide spectrum of areas between the two countries. It laid the foundation.
The foundation, okay. And they went even further, didn't they? Signing a specific nuclear deal focused on peaceful civilian nuclear cooperation.
Yes, that's right.
Now, that's a particularly high-impact agreement. It's not just general friendliness. It's cooperation in a sensitive, technologically advanced, and strategically critical sector.
It speaks volumes, absolutely. It suggests a level of trust and shared interests they were cultivating, even at that relatively early stage in the formal relationship.
Okay, so moving from those foundational strategic steps into the nuts and bolts of their economic relationship.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize Kazakhstan's energy profile again and again. It reiterates that Kazakhstan is rich in oil and gas and uses a very striking descriptor.
Ah, yes, the Saudi Arabia of CA.
Exactly, the Saudi Arabia of Central Asia. That comparison immediately gives you a visceral sense of the sheer scale and significance of its hydrocarbon reserves.
It really does. And the sources aren't just talking generally. They actually name specific, absolutely colossal oil and gas reserves mentioned as being key.
Right.
The Abai and Satpayev reserves, located in the Ali Kekmola and Kurmangazi blocks. Hearing those specific names, those locations, it drives home that this isn't just abstract potential. These are concrete, vast deposits representing immense energy wealth.
And the sustained high-level attention from India further underscores Kazakhstan's undeniable commercial significance. I mean, the sources make a point of highlighting a remarkable fact.
The prime ministerial visits.
Yes, 4 different Indian prime ministers, P.V. Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh, and Narendra Modi have visited Kazakhstan since the end of the Cold War.
That's quite a list.
It is. That level of consistent engagement from successive Indian leaders across different political spectrums demonstrates that Kazakhstan is a fixture, a consistently high priority in India's foreign policy calculations.
Definitely underscores the importance. So, to structure and facilitate this burgeoning trade and cooperation, the sources tell us they established an Intergovernmental Commission, or IGC, way back in 1992.
Okay, the IGC. What was its role?
Well, the IGC was designed with a pretty broad mandate, actually. covering trade, economic cooperation, technology, and even cultural cooperation.
Yeah, quite wide-ranging.
Very. Its explicit primary purpose, as stated in the sources, was to act as the institutional mechanism specifically tasked with promoting bilateral trade between the two countries. It provides a regular forum for high-level discussions, sorting out issues, planning next steps.
And we see a tangible outcome from this IGC process mentioned in the sources, right? In what's referred to as the latest meeting cited, which was in 2014.
Yes.
India successfully completed negotiations related to oil exploration in that significant Abai oil block we mentioned earlier.
Right. Completing negotiations on a block like Abai is a major step. And the sheer scale, it bears repeating. The sources state the Abai block possesses an estimated 387 million tons of oil.
Wow, 387 million tons.
Yeah. For India, a major energy consumer, securing involvement, whether it's exploration rights, eventual development rights, in a block of this magnitude is a truly significant move for its long-term energy security, its access to potentially vast resources.
Building on the IGC's work, the sources also mentioned the establishment of a business forum in 2005, operating within that IGC framework. The role of this forum, it seems, is to identify specific areas to enhance cooperation. So it sounds like the IGC provides the strategic direction, maybe the government-to-government piece.
And the business forum gets down to the practicalities.
Exactly, where and how businesses from both sides can actually collaborate.
Yeah, moving from the intergovernmental strategy to facilitating actual commercial deals and joint ventures. And the sources highlight a key decision related to those oil resources. The two countries decided they would undertake oil exploration jointly.
Jointly. Okay. The sources lay out two specific pathways for this oil-based relationship.
What are they?
Firstly, India has the potential to participate directly in the future, perhaps even as a sole developer of oil resources.
Interesting.
And secondly, it can also explore oil as a consortium partner, teaming up with other entities.
Okay, so flexibility there.
Seems like it. This dual approach offers India flexibility in how it engages with Kazakhstan's oil sector, allowing it to choose the model best suited for specific projects or, its own strategic capacity.
And the source explicitly states the strategic rationale behind this joint undertaking.
Which is?
It is intended to enhance the prospects of cooperation, specifically to achieve India's energy security. This isn't just commercial activity for its own sake. It's directly linked to a core national strategic goal for India.
Right, securing energy. And the sources give us a concrete example of Indian presence in this critical area. OVL.
ONGC Videsh Limited.
Yes, the international arm of India's state-owned oil and gas corporation. It's mentioned as having its sights set on the Satpayev oil field.
And not just sites. OVL already has a tangible stake there. The source says it holds a 25% share at present.
A quarter stake already.
Exactly. This isn't merely potential interest. There is already significant Indian state investment in these key energy assets within Kazakhstan. It shows this cooperation is actively underway, not just planned.
Okay. Beyond the massive energy sector, which clearly dominates, the sources provide a snapshot of the broader trade dynamics between the two countries. They list the types of goods being exchanged.
What does India export?
Well, according to this, India exports items like pharmaceutical products, coffee, textiles, and engineering goods to Kazakhstan.
Okay, value-added goods, manufactured items.
Seems like it. And in the reverse flow, India imports raw materials and key industrial inputs from Kazakhstan, things like iron, zinc, steel, sulfur, and lime.
So it paints a picture of a fairly complementary trade relationship, doesn't it? India, increasingly a manufacturing and service hub, sends finished and value-added goods.
While Kazakhstan, rich in minerals, supplies the raw materials needed for India's industries.
Makes sense.
And it's not just trade flows. Indian companies have established a physical presence in Kazakhstan. The sources name several prominent firms.
Like who?
L&T Larsen and Toubro, which has an office in the capital, Astana. Plus Tata, Apollo Tires, and Punj Lloyd are mentioned.
Okay, big names.
Yeah. And there's a particularly significant long-standing example provided. Middle Steel, now part of the ArcelorMittal Group.
Ah, the steel plant.
Exactly. They acquired the Carmit steel plant way back in 1995. The source says it's now managed as Ispat Carmit.
Right. That represents a substantial and quite early piece of foreign direct investment by a major Indian-associated global company into Kazakhstan's heavy industrial sector. It demonstrates a deep, long-term commitment.
Definitely. Okay, let's maybe zoom in on a couple of specific areas highlighted in the sources, starting with an interesting, perhaps smaller scale case study. The India-Kazakhstan tea trade.
Ah, tea. Interesting.
It seems like a smaller piece compared to oil or steel, but it offers some insights into the nuances of their economic relationship, maybe the challenges too.
Okay, what do the sources say?
Well, they note that India has historically been one of the leading tea exporters to Kazakhstan, so there was an established market presence, consumer preference, perhaps?
Right, a historical link there.
But the sources also point out that in recent times, that historical prominence in the tea trade has faced challenges. The trade has actually declined.
Declined, why?
They state that India's overall tea exports have gone down due to a combination of quantity and marketing related issues.
Marketing issues. Interesting.
Yeah, and the source specifically calls out the single most important reason for this decline, according to their information, as a poor marketing campaign.
Wow, specifically marketing.
Yeah. What's insightful about that, I think, is it suggests the challenge isn't necessarily about the quality or availability of Indian tea itself.
But how it's being sold.
Exactly. How effectively it's being positioned, promoted, and, understood by consumers within the Kazakh market. It highlights the importance of market-specific strategies beyond just having a good product.
That's a really interesting point. So did they try to fix it?
Well, recognizing this, steps have been taken to try and reverse that trend and boost tea exports again. The sources mention specific actions on the ground.
Like what?
The Tea Board of India, working together with the Indian Mission in Kazakhstan, organized tea festivals in both Almaty and Astana.
Okay, direct promotion.
Yeah.
Bringing the tea to the people.
Right. These kinds of promotional events are direct efforts to tackle that identified marketing deficit, bringing the product and its culture directly to the Kazakh consumer.
And did it work?
Well, the sources provide a, let's say, nuanced assessment of their impact. They state that these measures have, to some extent, strengthened tea exports.
Okay, some positive movement.
But the trade has not yet reached its earlier peak. So progress is happening, but there's still ground to recover to restore India's historical market position in tea.
Right, a work in progress.
Exactly. Okay, shifting gears quite significantly now to a much higher tech form of cooperation. The sources return to the nuclear relationship.
Ah, yes, the 2009 deal.
We mentioned the civilian nuclear deal earlier, and the sources provide more detail here.
Right. That landmark deal was solidified via a Memorandum of Understanding, a MOU, signed between India's state-owned Nuclear Power Corporation of India, MPCIL, and Kazakhstan's national atomic company, Kazatomprom.
And the core of it.
The fundamental core of this agreement, as outlined, is that Kazakhstan committed to supplying India with uranium specifically for its civilian nuclear power program, fuel for the reactors.
And importantly, the cooperation wasn't confined just to the raw material supply, was it?
No, that's a good point. The sources note other areas of collaboration, specifically mentioning nuclear medicine and radiation therapy for healthcare purposes.
Okay, so broader applications.
Yes, it shows the partnership extended to the application of nuclear technology for societal benefit, not just energy generation, which is quite significant.
And Kazakhstan's position in this sector is globally significant, adding weight to this partnership. The sources highlight that Kazakhstan possesses the second largest uranium reserves in the entire world.
Second largest. That's huge.
It is. This makes it a critically important potential supplier for any country, like India, looking to scale up its nuclear energy capacity as part of its overall energy mix.
So the direct, practical outcome for India stemming from this deal is crystal clear, really.
Which is?
It has enabled India to import uranium, a vital fuel source for its civilian nuclear power plants, helping to power its growing economy. It's a direct line from Kazakhstan's mineral wealth to India's energy production.
A very strategic connection. Beyond nuclear technology, the sources also point to cooperation in the space sector.
Right. Kazakhstan hosts the renowned Baikonur Cosmodrome,
which the sources describe as a very important space research center. Its historical significance in space exploration is, well, undeniable.
Absolutely. Baikonur is controlled by the Kazakhstan National Space Agency, and the sources tell us India's own space agency, ISRO,
our space agency,
signed a memorandum of understanding with their Kazakh counterparts back in 2011, specifically focused on technology transfer.
Technology transfer in space.
Yes. This indicates a willingness to share knowledge and capabilities in a really cutting-edge field, leveraging Kazakhstan's established infrastructure and potentially expertise from Baikonur.
Interesting. Another area for knowledge sharing highlighted is agriculture.
Okay.
The sources acknowledge that Kazakhstan has made considerable progress in this field, notably achieving record production levels in wheat.
Right, a major wheat producer.
However, despite its agricultural successes, the sources point out that Kazakhstan faces specific shortages in certain areas, namely severe shortages in milk and fertilizers.
Ah, okay, so strong in grains, but gaps elsewhere.
Seems so. This presents a need that India, with its extensive agricultural experience, particularly in areas like dairy production, the whole Operation Flood history, and fertilizer technology, can potentially help address.
And is India helping?
Yes. The sources note that India has explicitly decided to assist Kazakhstan in what's termed its White Revolution.
The term used for India's dairy boom.
Exactly. So this is a clear example of targeted cooperation, where India is leveraging its historical expertise, its own development experience, to help meet a specific agricultural need identified in Kazakhstan.
That's a great example of practical cooperation.
It is. Okay, let's turn our attention now to a period the sources seem to highlight as particularly significant for the modern relationship. The analysis of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Kazakhstan in 2015.
Right, 2015, that seems like a key moment.
It appears to have been packed with outcomes, building on the foundations we've discussed.
It certainly seems to have been a highly productive visit. The sources provide several fascinating details, starting with a notable act of cultural diplomacy.
Oh, what was that?
The Indian Prime Minister presented President Nazarbayev with a set of books based on religions born in India.
Books. Which ones?
The specific books mentioned are revealing of the cultural connections being highlighted. Stories of Guru Gobind Singh, the founder of Sikhism, the Parabahu Kalpa Sutra, a significant Jain text, the Ashtasahasrika Prajnaparamita, an important Buddhist scripture,
Okay, diverse representation there.
and notably, a Persian version of the Valmiki Ramayana, one of India's great epics.
In Persian. Interesting.
Yeah. Presenting texts from diverse Indian religions and a classic epic in a regional lingua franca like Persian really underscores shared civilizational ties and the historical spread of Indian culture and thought across Central Asia. The thoughtful nod to that deeper history we talked about earlier.
That is quite thoughtful. The visit also placed a strong emphasis on education and technology collaboration, didn't it?
It did. The Prime Minister visited Nazarbayev University, which is a prominent educational institution in Kazakhstan.
And during that visit, a tangible outcome was the inauguration of the Indo-Kazakh Center of Excellence in Information Technology.
Right. That's more than symbolic. It signals a joint commitment to developing skills, fostering innovation, and building capacity in the critical and rapidly evolving IT sector. It links Indian tech expertise with Kazakhstan's educational infrastructure.
A very modern form of cooperation. Now, a particularly crucial element of the 2015 visit, according to the sources, was a renewal of that vital uranium supply agreement.
Ah, yes, the timing was key there. The sources remind us that the term of the initial contract for uranium supply signed back in 2009.
The one we discussed earlier.
Exactly. That initial term was set to end in 2014.
So the 2015 visit provided the critical opportunity to ensure the continuation of the supply chain. And a fresh agreement was successfully concluded.
That's what the sources say. A fresh agreement was concluded.
And do we know the detail?
Yes. The details of this renewed agreement, as specified in the sources, confirm a substantial commitment. Kazakhstan agreed to provide India with 5,000 tons of uranium over the period from 2015 to 2019.
5,000 tons over 4 years.
Right. This renewal, specifying both quantity and duration, demonstrates Kazakhstan's reliability as a strategic energy partner for India and, crucially, secures a significant fuel source for India's nuclear power plants for those subsequent years. It's a very concrete, high-value outcome of that visit.
Absolutely critical for India's nuclear program. The 2015 visit also aimed at broadening the scope of economic and development ties beyond just traditional resources, it seems.
Yes, India made a commitment to participate in Expo 2017, which was hosted by Kazakhstan.
Right, that was a big international event for them.
It was. Participating was a visible way for India to showcase innovation and partnership.
And cooperation was also agreed upon in the field of renewable energy.
That's right. This points towards a forward-looking element of the relationship, acknowledging the global shift towards cleaner energy sources.
So looking beyond fossil fuels?
Exactly. identifying renewables as a new area for joint efforts, potentially in solar, wind, or other green technologies.
People-to-people connections were also addressed, with an agreement for a youth exchange program.
Kazakhstan decided to join hands with universities in India for this program, planned to run over the 5 years following the 2015 visit.
Investing in the next generation.
Precisely. Building understanding and ties between younger generations is always an investment in the long-term health of a relationship.
On a more concrete economic development front, the visit resulted in the identification of a significant number of specific cooperation projects. The sources say 26 distinct projects were pinpointed.
26? That's quite a few. Do we know what kind?
Well, the sources give us examples of the types of projects agreed upon, including plans for a gas turbine plant and a solar plant.
Okay, so energy again, but covering both conventional gas and renewable solar.
Exactly. These are tangible infrastructure and energy projects that reflect both countries' priorities, accessing Kazakhstan's gas resources, while also exploring renewable energy options. It aligns with both immediate needs and future energy trends.
Makes sense. Efforts were also made to enhance direct sectoral cooperation, specifically through collaboration between governmental or business promotion agencies.
Which ones?
JSC Invest India from the Indian side and JSC Kaznex Invest from the Kazakhstani side.
And JSC is?
Joint stock company. The sources clarify that, indicating these are official or quasi-official entities tasked with facilitating investment and trade.
So getting the agencies talking to smooth the path for business.
That seems to be the idea. Their cooperation suggests a focus on practical steps to ease business interactions and identify actual opportunities on the ground.
And looking at broader trade facilitation, the visit initiated steps towards potentially reducing trade barriers.
Yes, a joint study group was established specifically to explore the possibility of a free trade agreement, an FTA.
An FTA study, that's a serious step.
It is. Undertaking a study like this indicates a serious mutual interest in significantly boosting commercial exchange by lowering tariffs and other trade obstacles down the line. It's laying the groundwork.
Finally, the sources note that defense cooperation was also part of the high-level discussions during the 2015 visit.
Defense.
Yes, with the two countries reaching some conclusion at the defense level. While specific details are mentioned as being covered in the next section of the source material, its inclusion as an outcome of this major visit signals that security and defense were also significant components of the strategic dialogue, alongside energy and economics.
Right, a comprehensive partnership.
Which brings us nicely to looking ahead, exploring the potential and possibilities for the India-Kazakhstan relationship as outlined in the sources.
Okay, future directions.
One interesting area suggested is leveraging cultural connections for diplomacy. We touched on the book Gift earlier.
Right, and a specific figure is highlighted as a potential avenue for this. Mirza Muhammad Hyder Dulati.
Dulati, who was he?
The sources identify him historically as having served as the governor of Kashmir during the rule of the Mughal Emperor Humayun. So a historical link to the Indian subcontinent.
Okay. Well, what's his relevance in Kazakhstan today?
That's the interesting part. The sources state that he has been branded as a national hero there in recent times.
A national hero in Kazakhstan with ties to Kashmir's history.
Exactly. This re-emphasis on historical figures who have ties to both regions creates a unique bridge, a shared narrative.
And the sources explicitly suggest that India should strategically use this cultural icon, Mirza Muhammad Hyder Dulati, to engage in cultural diplomacy.
How so?
Well, recognizing and celebrating figures who have historical relevance in both nations can foster deeper people-to-people connections, build goodwill.
And potentially smooth diplomatic and economic interactions.
Right. It's about finding and leveraging those shared historical narratives that might have been overlooked.
That's a fascinating diplomatic tool. Another important area identified for future collaboration is defense cooperation.
Building on the discussions from 2015.
Presumably. And the sources point to a specific and rather intriguing opportunity within Kazakhstan. The presence of many old, idle, and abandoned military-industrial complexes.
Leftovers from the Soviet era, perhaps.
That seems likely. Remnants of a different time.
And the potential for India, as suggested by the sources, is that India may be able to use these for its own benefit.
That's stated rather broadly. What could that mean?
Well, the source doesn't specify, but one can infer possibilities. It could range from accessing specific types of facilities for manufacturing, perhaps repair or maintenance of certain equipment.
Or even acquiring technology or expertise.
Potentially. It suggests exploring ways to leverage Kazakhstan's existing, albeit possibly disused, defense infrastructure in some mutually beneficial way.
Interesting potential there. A more specific defense possibility mentioned is India, exploring the option of imparting naval training to the Kazakhstani Navy.
Naval training. But Kazakhstan is landlocked, isn't it, apart from the Caspian Sea?
Exactly, the Caspian Sea. And the sources even specify the type of training for anti-piracy operations.
Anti-piracy in the Caspian.
It's interesting, isn't it? It might suggest that Kazakhstan, with its significant coastline on the Caspian Sea, which is a major transit route, especially for energy, sees a need for enhanced capabilities in maritime security.
Perhaps against smuggling or other illicit activities, not just traditional piracy.
Could be. And they view India, with its significant naval experience, including in anti-piracy operations in the Indian Ocean, as a capable partner in providing that specialized training.
It points to a very practical, needs-based area where defense cooperation could potentially evolve, tailored to Kazakhstan's specific context.
Definitely. It shows the potential breadth of the relationship.
So we've taken quite a comprehensive journey through the sources provided for this deep dive. We started way back with the ancient Silk Route connection,
Establishing that early content.
moved through the establishment of formal ties in the post-Cold War era, explored the absolutely critical importance of energy and commercial links, really driven by Kazakhstan's vast resources and India's growing needs.
The core dynamic.
Delves into specific collaborations in areas like nuclear power, space technology, even the surprising case of the ups and downs of the tea trade.
Right, the marketing issue.
Analyze the significant outcomes packed into that 2015 prime ministerial visit, covering everything from cultural gifts to uranium deals and FTA studies.
A very productive visit.
And finally, looked at intriguing future possibilities ranging from cultural diplomacy, using shared historical figures like Mirza Dulati, to practical defense cooperation like naval training for Caspian security.
We've really tried to synthesize the wealth of detail and specific examples from the source material you shared to build a multifaceted picture of this important relationship, highlighting the core drivers, the institutional mechanisms like the IGC, and the tangible projects that define it.
It really is a fascinating illustration, isn't it? How historical connections, centuries old, can lay the groundwork for complex, strategically vital modern partnerships. Partnerships often driven by hard economic and security realities like those fundamental energy needs.
Absolutely. So, given all this, the deep historical interaction, the current strategic importance heavily influenced by Kazakhstan's vast resources and India's growing energy demands, and these diverse identified future areas for collaboration across cultural, economic, technological, and even defense sectors. It makes you wonder, how might the India-Kazakhstan relationship serve as a model, or perhaps offer cautionary lessons for other partnerships, particularly between resource-rich, often landlocked nations and dynamic, expanding global economies seeking reliable resource access?
That's a great question. What are the long-term implications of balancing such varied interests and navigating the complexities of regional dynamics, with Russia and China right there, in the pursuit of mutual benefit in these kinds of relationships?
It's definitely a partnership that is clearly still in motion, adapting to a changing world. Lots to keep an eye on.